Welcome everyone to Madison County Public Library. See the art, meet the artisan. Today's artist is Mary Ann Bussey, and she is a fiber artist, but it looks like she's got a lot more going on back here, and so I think we're going to have lots of questions and find out a lot more about Mary Ann. So everyone please welcome Mary Ann Bussey.
Thank you. And again, my name is Mary Ann Bussey, and I'm here from Madison County. I'm originally from Richmond, but me and my husband have made this our home here in Berea. I went to EKU and graduated in 2009. I studied metalsmithing and painting when I was at school. My parents are from Estill County, and my mother's from Wayne County. My dad is from Estill County. Growing up, my grandparents, they always had a farm in Wayne County. They had tobacco. My uncle had a dairy. So we were always, having a garden in the summer, always thinking about flowers. My grandmother always had a large flower beds full of flowers. She loved them. Wildflowers, we would go digging wildflowers in the summer. So I've always been related to planting flowers, identifying things. I think it's just genetics. But in 2009, I got married after school and worked a few odd jobs. That year was not the best year for trying to find any kind of job with the economy. So I just worked a little bit. Then my husband realized he wanted to go back to school, so he was a music major, and so I was being the supportive spouse and supported him to go back to nursing school. And I did a few jobs, worked at the Artisan Center. That was kind of my first thing, saying I really needed to go back to doing what I wanted to do in the beginning. I got a little burnt out having to do so many projects, being in school. It was project after project, being there, staying until midnight sometimes. So started drawing, started looking at some of my old projects, wishing that I could do something. And then we ended up buying a house here in Berea, and it took us a long time to find something that we both loved. We found this house. It's on acreage. It's got a building on it, so I'm hoping that this year I'm going to make a studio in it, and maybe that'll be something that can give me a space that I can actually expand my business. Right now I'm working in my garage, but I have gotten some accolades this year. This past year I was accepted into the Kentucky Crafted program, so that was exciting news. And that really made me feel like I've accomplished something. It's hard to be an artist and think that you have a good product and think that it's something special and get overlooked a lot. But having the state program actually think that you're something of worth makes you feel even better. So that was an accomplishment for me, personally. But, after school, we bought our house. That was a really large goal for us. I'm hoping that down the line that my business can expand, and it can be something that will make me have a little bit of an income that will supplement instead of having just a regular 9-to-5 job. But right now it's going steadily. But on back to school, and before I started becoming a fiber artist. School, I always loved color. I'm a fan of color on jewelry, patinas, and naturalistic items. Nature, I've always loved flowers yet again, vines, trees. And so I incorporated that into some of the jewelry that I did. Acorns, seed pods, and made them into some sculptural items on wearables. So wearable art was always something that I was drawn to. So I guess that has merged into the fiber art. I did a lot of paintings of trees and vines as well, and that also merged into some of the fiber art too. But I got into the fiber art from actually just coincidence. I was thumbing through Facebook one day, and my sister owned an art gallery in Frankfurt, and it was called the Gatsby Gallery, and she had an artist that was Lindy Huber. She did fiber art, but she does a lot of the alpaca fiber art. So she was doing eco printing, and this is what this is, kind of using the botanicals on alpaca. But she was holding a workshop for a couple of months during a fall, and I signed up for one of the workshops and really just fell in love with it. We got to pick out a few of our items that we wanted to take if we liked a certain plant, and brought that with the workshop. But it was a 6-hour workshop, lasted all day, and we got to look around her farm. But from there, my interest was really sparked, and I started, really thinking about how to make that into a business that I would really appreciate.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm not hard very well.
Not better. It's hard in the rain.
And I forgot that I skipped over a few of my pictures that I've done. So this is some of the jewelry that I have done from school. And it incorporated color. It's an enamel piece with silver.
All right.
And
Sorry.
So what is the process of making a scarf?
It's a silk scarf, and you have to, I was going to go in a little bit into it more, but it's a silk scarf, and then I do make a dye. I have a line of dyes I use. Depending on the year, it depends on the leaves. So if it's winter right now, I would have to soak the leaves in water for up to 30 minutes and make them pliable. If it's, spring, summer, the leaves are green, so they're more pliable, you can use them. So if it was spring or summer, I could lay the leaves onto the scarf with the dye, and then I would roll it up, and then I have to steam them or boil them for 3 hours. And then the tannins and the impression from the leaf is what is left behind. I've got that on a couple of slides too. But yet again, going back to sculptural pieces and color, this is another necklace that I did, and it has kind of orb shapes on it from one of my classes.
The X's on the bottom and the O's on the top almost look like kisses and hugs.
Yeah. And this is just some objects that I had, some ceramic pieces there on the left, representing acorns. The top are actual acorns, and then the bottom is some acorns that are molds from the acorns themselves. It's a wax mold that I've used in casting.
Would you like me to pass that around?
You can, or everybody can see them.
These are wearables?
This is some of the pieces. The wax pieces are used in casting and lost wax casting, and I used some of those actually in the earrings up here on the table.
You want me to pass around some of the earrings?
Yeah. And these are some of the earrings up here. Yet again, going back to nature, naturalistic items.
I love the nature look. That's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Makes me think of Yosemite.
The ones on the left are a granulated object, so it's actually like enameling or casting, but it's called granulation. You use tiny balls of silver and heat on a heated plate, and the silver actually melts onto the piece of silver to make a pattern. The ones in the middle are actually seed pods, the red seed pods from the dogwood tree when it's blooming in the spring. And the ones on the right are acorns.
They look like are they gold?
They're silver, sterling, yeah.
I see these silver, but they do look gold on
They
there.
do,
It's just
they've
a
got a
light.
little bit patina on them. Yet again, some more objects that I brought too.
Is that necklace the one you're wearing?
It is.
Wow.
Some silver buttons that I had, some vintage buttons that I made into a mold and shaped. Some pendants that are egg-like shapes. Some acorn earrings that were painted, but they're made out of ceramic. And
What
a
is
molded pendant.
this? That one that it's it almost porcupine or something.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that. Is it from a seedling from a tree? Or?
That one I actually made out of just clay, and it's just something I molded out of clay.
It looks like it should fall from a tree.
This
Oh,
one
beautiful.
is a pendant I've got up here actually. It's enamel and it's has sterling silver wire on it. It's cloisonné. So just yet again going back to loving color with wearable items, kind of like watercolor. And then a painting I did in school goes back to kind of naturalistic, vines, trees, and loving nature. And this is a book, it's in the case out in the lobby. One of the books, and I also have another one up here. The author is India Flint, and she's from Australia. It is one of the books that were referred from Lindy Huber. She said, if you really loved eco-printing and wanted to maybe learn a little bit more, to pick up these two books from this author. Also, a lot of reading. People do YouTube videos, blogs. So I've done a lot of reading. And this is a picture of the workshop that I was at Lindy Huber's. This is kind of an example of what it looks like out on the table when you're actually making one of these scarves. Yet again, it's dye and paper towels. Saran wrap is on the bottom on the table. And then you're putting and placing all of your leaves in kind of a pattern that you would like with the dye. And then after that point, you're rolling it up in a dowel and then boiling it. And that's another view.
So you paint, you put the dye on first, and then you put the,
So you put the saran wrap down, you wet the table, mist it down with a water bottle. Then you put the paper towels, and you have to soak them in a launderant. And then put the dye, and then the leaves, and then roll it up. And that's an example of what they looked like after. And so different leaves give off a different tannin, and it also, yet again, goes back to the time of year. Spring always has very light kind of impressions, white looking, and not really giving off any color, or a pale green. Kind of like what some of these ferns are doing up here. And the ferns kind of give off just a slight green. And if it's in the fall, you're working with oak leaves, just like in this picture. They're really dark. They give off more of a tannin, and it's more of a brown that you're left behind. And depending on the leaf, also depends on the color. So these have catalpa leaves, oak leaves, and those give off more of a brown. And if it was a maple leaf or a blackberry leaf, it would give off more of a black or a purple. And then, of course, the eucalyptus is not native to Kentucky, but it gives off a really pretty orange.
Yeah.
And like in this one, I was saying the tannins from this are actually blackberry leaves, so it gives off some really pretty black purple color. And then some leaves always give off just this whitish, just your kind of a imprint of the leaf. So that one is a sycamore leaf. And just gives a nice, really pretty pattern. But this one I turned into, sent out kind of samples saying that my business and business name, and gave out a little business card and hoping to get some kind of publicity. And I sent this scarf to Mary Jane's Farm. It's a magazine, small magazine. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's one that I've really liked. It's just about self-sustaining farming, and it's out of Idaho. And she gave me like a little free ad in her magazine, so I was really thrilled with that one. But it was using native plants. I'm trying to do native plants, some Kentucky item that would be special for someone that was wanting to either travel through or knew somebody, a relative in Kentucky, and that way it could correlate and give them something special from Kentucky.
Do you display some of your art at the Artist Center?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of my scarves are at the Artisan Center here in town. And this is another scarf. Yet again, they all, can turn out different just depending on the time of year, the dye, just the leaf itself. This one had a little bit of thinning on the leaf, so more dye came through. So you got to see a little more of the veining from the leaf on this one on the bottom. And this one was a redbud leaf. Redbud and sweet gum. And yet again, this one is more from the fall, around October. And the sweet gum are kind of going from green to the purple red color in the fall. And this is what you would get from that if you were to use those leaves. And this one has fern leaves in it, not the kind of fancy fern from up when me and my husband hiked and collected these ferns. But these are more of a regular fern that you would find out in the woods. And of course it has sycamore and sweet gum leaves and some eucalyptus. And that's about all I have.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Have you
So-
gotten much better at identifying trees?
Yes. But it's still like a learning process. We still question sometimes and have to get a little identifier out on our phone, but I'm getting better at it.
Do the ginkgo leaves always produce a white pattern?
They do. And, you know, ginkgo is known with Berea, so it's always been a very special thing to put on these scarves. Everybody wants a ginkgo leaf to make them think of Berea.
So does color of the dye that you put down first affect what happens with the color of the leaves?
Yes and no.
Well, I'm looking, like the ginkgo leaves on that scarf that's lying down are much lighter than what's on the.
Yeah, I know. It just, yet again, it goes back to the time of year, and yes, it does depend on the color of dye itself. Like this one has more of a brown coming through, that one has more of greens, and that one was done in the spring, and this one was done in the fall.
They're gorgeous. So the eucalyptus, the color from the eucalyptus on there is much paler than on here.
And
Is
it
that just
depends.
happenstance?
It depends on how old the eucalyptus is. So some of it, you know, it's very hard to find, the silver dollar eucalyptus, so I had to buy in bulk and then keep it in my refrigerator. I've still got some in my refrigerator right now. But just depending on how fresh it is how vibrant the orange is. The older it gets, the more, the less orange it is.
That's really nice though, that muted.
Does this process work with fabrics other than silk?
It does. It works with cotton and wool. I have not experimented with it. I've had other ladies that I've been talking to do it.
Linen probably would work too.
Possibly, yeah. It is in the cotton family. But I haven't experimented with that yet. I'm hoping to do some alpaca or maybe some wool.
I think it'd be fun to have a 6x8 tapestry done in this
Yeah, and a lot
methodology.
of people, you know, with the larger wraps that I've been doing have said that they love them and they would have them as wall art. So I've been playing with that idea, maybe doing some wall hangings.
Could be beautiful as pillowcases too.
Yeah.
In the bathroom, forget the kids. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We're thinking the whole bed.
Yeah,
Or
a whole bed
recovering a
set.
sofa, or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
So you only need to dye the leaves for 30 minutes, and then you can start.
If I had to soak the leaves, if it was winter time and you know how brittle everything gets, I would have to soak them for about 30 minutes and then work with them. But if it was in spring and summer, then I wouldn't have to.
How would you determine if it, like, is there a too brittle point where you just can't use leaves at all? Or
Yeah, when they start when they just start disintegrating, I
Okay.
can't do anything. Like when you start holding them and they start just tearing into little chunks,
Mm.
you can't do
So
anything.
are you just dyeing, you're just dyeing the silk,
Yeah,
not the leaves, they're just,
yeah, the leaves don't really soak
they're
up
like the
anything.
negative space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the leaves are serving as a resist?
They are.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing, it's beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you all came out.
For your wax cast, do you use beeswax?
I've heard of people doing the beeswax. It's a batik. That's the kind of thing that is, but I've not done it.
Okay.
I heard it's really hard to get the wax off your fabric after you've done that.
Thank you guys about the wax
Yeah,
cast.
the wax
Oh, I'm
cast.
sorry.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I was asking if they were made from beeswax.
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh, okay.
Right. He was back here trying to smell
I
it, to
smelled them.
discern.
So I had to go ahead and justify why I did that.
Yes, they're made out of beeswax.
Have you ever considered doing a blouse or a dress?
I have, and then I've talked to some of the ladies that have done that before in the past. They said, you know, wearables out of shirts and things are just a hard sell because everybody's such different body types that, you know, it's harder to sell. So something as a more of an accent when you're wearing it for a coat or something out already is better.
What kind of dyes do you use, or is that a trade secret?
No, it's okay. It's just like an acid dye I get from the Woolery in Frankfurt.
So does it smell really strong when you're doing all that?
It does because I do use vinegar. The iron monderant that I use doesn't really have too much of a smell. It just smells more like when you've rubbed a piece of metal for a while and you get that smell in your hand. It smells something like that. But the vinegar, you know, is a little noxious. But other than that, I definitely have to have the boiler outside while I'm boiling these though, because there's no description of what it smells like. There's eucalyptus and then the leaves themselves have the smell, and it's just boiling all that for 3 hours. It's not very good.
Have you thought about doing a book?
I have not thought about doing a book, but we have thought about, you know, doing more of a blog kind of thing just for our farm. You know, we have 30 chickens and 5 cats and a dog. So I thought, you know, more like daily events on the farm kind of thing and incorporating me in it a little bit.
I think that you covered it very well, and
Thank you.
and that, you know, an ebook even. On,
Yeah.
You know, how you did it.
Okay.
I think that's a nice option.
And I forgot to tell everybody, my business name is Blue Lick Hollow Farm and Studio, and you know we are on the outskirts of Berea, close to Indian Port Theater.
Whenever you're finished, if you don't mind, you can invite people to look at the other
Yeah.
stuff that's
No,
out there.
sure. If you want to come up and look at anything, you can look at the book or any of my items. But I thank everybody for coming.
Well, thank you.